we're going to call this meeting of the Freeman School Board to order. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Is the roll call, sorry. Debbie?
Emily?
Yes.
Cody Franson?
Yep.
Doug?
Yes.
Carissa?
Yes.
Corey Spengler?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. We will require a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Cody Franson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Doug. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, conflict of interest disclosures. I have not received any.
No,
Next item on the agenda, public input.
there was none.
Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Will require a motion to approve the following: the minutes of the regularly scheduled school board meeting of January 9th, 2023, the minutes of the Cornwall Cooperative Board of Advisors meeting of January 18th, 2023, the resignation of Christy Sage from the position of head golf coach, the resignation of Sherry Rumbold from the position of assistant golf coach, the resignation of Brandon Wallenstein from the position of strength coach, financial reports, and claims. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Cody Franson, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Carissa, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda are administrative reports, starting with elementary kids.
We're in the process of doing our vision and health screening, county health nurse in town. We'll go out to the counties on the 21st. We did a data dig in the afternoon of our last flyer Friday. The trend that we saw in our data dig was our language arts scores seem to be trending down, which is perfect timing that we're actually doing a curriculum review for language arts. So on March 3rd, the elementary will not have a flyer Friday. We're going to spend the entire day reviewing curriculum and hopefully making a decision fairly soon into March. So
That
that's
sounds
stuff we
riveting.
do.
Yeah.
I think there's 5 Zoom meetings with different companies set
Oh,
up
wow.
for the teachers. We have parent-teacher conferences on Wednesday and Thursday from 2 to 6:30. Smarter Balance testing window opens March 6th, and that's grades 3 through 8 and 11. Our access testing is completed at the county. Rebecca Peterson was out last week ill, so they're a little behind in town. I'm not sure when they'll complete, but we'll get the results for the access testing in April. And for you new board members, access testing is the English acquisition skills for your EL kids. So once they pass that access testing, then you don't get funding for them as a EL student. February 23rd, we have a doctor coming from the Sanford Underground Research Facility. They're going to work with K6. I think we've got about 4 breakout sessions that they'll work with different grades. Kind of a cool opportunity.
Awesome.
We have a child find in the kindergarten roundup. Will be on the afternoon of March 22nd and then the all day on the 23rd. After we get done with that, then we usually have a pretty good idea what our kindergarten numbers for next year look like. And then the elementary spring concert is March 14th.
Awesome. Thanks, Shane. Great, next item on the agenda is the high school principal administrative report.
I won't read all of this, but having great things happening. So junior honor choir kids went to Rapid City. That included Axel Schultz, Alaric Knittel, Braden Manjold, Hannon Alf, Madison Houck, and Jocelyn Lee. We did receive an email back from the boys' chauffeur that just really raved about how respectful that they were to her. So that was really nice of her to send that back to us. Nice job to our vocal students at contest last week. So we had some superior awards there. Our mixed chorus, our girls glee, girls 9, boys ensemble. And then Riley Dent and Dorothea Natchez both had a vocal solo, and then Claire Hofer on her piano solo. So congrats to them. Last Friday, some of our art students went down to Art Wars at USD, and they competed down there. So Liz Lopez, she placed second. out of 80 participants down there. So that was pretty exciting for her and us. And then our 1-act students took 4th place at Regions, and then Trayton Waltner and Dorothea Natchez both received Superior Performance Awards there as well. We celebrated School Counselor Appreciation Week last week. So a big thanks to Ms. Sweeter and all that she does for our school. We did, if you looked on the website, there's a picture on there, we had hats off to her on Friday, so it was a free hat day, so that was fun. 8th graders traveled to Wagner to the career fair on January 26th, that went well. We did talk about that a little bit and maybe looking at doing something more local here. It was pretty good for those 8th graders, there was a lot of things happening, but in Wagner it was a lot of their local things there, so I thought, well, we could potentially do something that could be closer to where we are as well. Our careers class has asked a lot of community members or non-community members to come in and talk to them about different careers. So a big thanks to those who have came in already to discuss. There is a list of those below. So if you are on that list, we certainly appreciate you, but there are about 12 or 13 people that have came in to talk, and lots of different careers, and a lot of them are kind of just explaining to the students what it is that they do, what education they had in order to get there, and then how their path kind of led them there. And so we're trying to, Melinda's doing a good job of trying to get a lot of different things in front of them, just to give them some idea of what's out there besides your traditional jobs. So that's been good. And then I am working on a presentation from the South Dakota Highway Patrol and their canine unit. So my plan is for them to bring the drug dogs in and have a presentation with our junior and senior high school, a little bit more serious presentation about what that looks like in our community at this time. And then after that, they would do a smaller dog presentation for our elementary, just how that dog works for them. So I'm working on a date through them for that, so I'll get that date to you as soon as that is coming in. Challenges for us on the high school side, I feel like have just been tardies with a few of our students. It feels overwhelming, but I think it's really like about 5 kids, but those 5 kids make a difference. So we're working through that and figuring out what we can do. Our juniors and seniors have open campus, so that really helps tighten that up for them, but the rest, our middle schoolers are still, they're pretty good. They still follow what we need them to do, but it's those freshmen and sophomores sometimes that can kind of take advantage of that. So we're working on that. Parent-teacher conferences, like Mr. Voss mentioned, lots of no school days coming up for various reasons. We will celebrate National FFA Week, the 20th through the 24th. I know that's 2 no school days, but that'll be a short week and we'll celebrate during that time. There will be a petting zoo as well during that time. And then we will have our Region 1 instrument ensemble band will be gone that day on the 1st. And then we will, on the junior high school side, we will have a Flyer Friday on March 3rd. Even though the elementary is not, our students can still come in and get done what they need to. So just want to clarify that. That's all I got.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. All right, Superintendent Administrative Report.
First of all, next week is School Board Recognition Week. I have a certificate for you from the ASBSD. Congratulations, thank you for the work that you do. I know you don't hear thank you all that often, but we really do have a great board, and the work that you guys do is greatly appreciated, so thank you. In your packets, I have a email from Lance. I asked Lance Freeman to dive into the proposed social studies standards and to give his feedback, so I put a list of some of the pros and cons together. Also in your packet, I have some information from the Department of Education. Seems as though the Department of Education is continuously trying to find outside groups to review the proposed social studies standards and provide feedback. So some of that feedback that was submitted this morning is highlighted in my superintendent update for you to read through. My plan is to talk to some of our elementary teachers and see if they would be willing to do the same thing that Lance did and just provide us just a pros and cons list. And ultimately, I'm sensing that this is the direction that the state is going to go. There is some districts that have voted on a resolution that is not in support of the standards. I don't know if the board would be interested in going that route, if you'd like to hear more from what our staff, how they feel about it, if the board would like to review those standards themselves. I think that's an open question for the board tonight, but my plan would be to get feedback from some of the elementary staff and present that at the March meeting.
Okay, no, that sounds good. I mean, just speaking for myself, I want to hear from the experts, so I'm by no means an expert in the standards, so I'd love to hear what our great teachers think.
Elementary seems to be the area that the proposed standards are met with the highest level of criticism.
Okay.
So I
Good to know.
would be very, very
Look
interested
forward to hearing that.
yeah, to hear what their feedback is as well. But there's a lot of positive feedback about the proposed standards. There's also some negativity as well. So more to come on that one.
Sounds good.
That's all I have for now.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, unfinished business. We didn't have any. Next item, new business. The school board will hold a discussion about staffing needs for the 2023-2024 school year.
We met as a cabinet last week and the past couple weeks talking about what our needs are leading into next year. I've also met with Debbie and I went back and looked at our enrollment numbers. So at the child count date, we were up 24 students from last year at the child count date. And looking at those numbers again, we are spot on exactly at increase of 24 kids to date. So we're still in a very good spot. Based off of those numbers, that does give us some flexibility as far as adding staff if we feel that that is a need. With the principals, we've identified some areas that are of need, and so one of those is that part-time at the elementary with some needs for EL programming. Also a need at the high school level for EL programming, and then also at the middle school level, we recognized a need for an additional social studies and science teacher to offset some of the larger classes that have started to kind of blow up on us, which is a great problem to have. But with that, we need to consider whether we want to add staffing to help accommodate that. And I would like to turn it over to Katie so she can share a little bit about what the vision would be for that staffing.
So currently, right now, with the teachers that we have, our science teacher for sure is, every single block is booked. Her prep is 5th period, which is also her lunch. So that's just how we had to do it in order to get those classes taught. Plus Seth is also helping us teach a course, two science courses, so we can fit all of the science that we're offering to our students to be taught amongst the teachers that we have. So that provides a little bit also difficult of time getting those courses scheduled because you have no flexibility when they're being taught. So that and then the second one would be our social studies is the next one that's the most full. So in prior years, we had 2 science teachers, right, before, and then we also had Mrs. Paige Hofer teaching some social studies. So we gave the social studies to the social studies teacher, we gave the science to the science. So we're just needing a little bit more there. If we can have somebody do both of those things, that would really be the best.
Okay.
Right, we don't really have full-time science, we don't really have a full-time social studies, but if we can get somebody that could do both of those things, that would be good. You wanna talk, the ESL piece then, for us on this side, we feel, right now, we have a course, that we have 3 teachers teaching right now for our ESL students, math and a language, and then, we have, Paige in there as well to help with the language component. And so that's been going really, really well. But outside of that class, we don't have a whole lot of time for them to receive services, which they need to be. So they're with Rebecca a lot, so she's got all of those students on her caseload with no flexibility. So I talked with Paige, and she would love to work with the ESL students, and she'd be willing to do that. She would need to work under Rebecca, since Rebecca has the endorsement.
Okay.
But certainly that it's okay to do it that way. So that would remove her from here, which we feel okay with. As far as what the other things that she's teaching, she's doing her Spanish 1, Spanish 2. This year, for instance, Spanish 2, we have 2 students in there. Spanish 2 can be taught through the virtual school.
Sure.
And that is $250 a student.
Okay.
So it would cost us, this year it would have been $500 to get those 2 students through.
Mhm.
I think what we would do probably is still have her do 1 or 2 of those courses, depending on how it looked in the schedule, depending on the numbers that are signing up to take it. So
Right.
this year
If it
we have a
makes
lot of
sense.
Spanish 1 students, so we may have a high volume of Spanish 2 next year, so we could fit that in and have her teach Spanish 2 here
Mhm.
and not pay for the virtual. But
Right.
if it becomes, there's not many, we can just kind of see how that rolls.
Just gives you some flex.
Give us flex with that,
Mhm.
yep. So, that 7th grade class is ginormous, and right now, it's split, and it's working okay, because 7th grade has always kind of been split for some
Mhm.
reason in the schedule. Moving forward to next year, though, we offer those 8th graders an opportunity to have Algebra 1 or 8th grade math. And so when we do that, then we have to have that, it's the same teacher teaching both, so that takes up 2 of her spots. Those 8th graders then have to have somewhere else to go. So this also allows us just some flexibility with that middle school scheduling, so we're not trying to book those core teachers and then having no room in the schedule for that. So I think that does both things for us,
Okay.
but
Yeah, it really satisfies a lot of the needs that we have, the 2 highest needs, which would be EL, so this would give us an opportunity to beef up our EL programming.
Mhm.
Wouldn't be adding, necessarily a full-time teacher. A lot of what that position looks like will depend on what we get for applicants, should the board decide to add the
Oh, sure.
1 FTE
Yeah.
for the science and social studies, depending on what other endorsements they have. So that'll be, figure that out when we start seeing the applicants coming in and who we hire for that position. But then for, the high school, like Katie said, that's a high need, trying to find out what we're gonna do for those classes that are really growing very large at this point in time. So what's the proposal right now would be, since Paige is just doing a lateral move, that sliding down into that position, that the proposal would be for the next agenda item, the board would agree to add a full-time teaching position for the 2023-2024 school year.
Debbie, you feel comfortable adding 1 based on our growth?
I put in our numbers for last year into last year's calculator
Mhm.
and also this year's calculator with just a projected LEP students, because I don't know that yet.
Right.
And it was 145, 517 with the 5% increase
Okay.
proposed.
Sure.
I mean, it's
Right.
nothing set.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I appreciate your input. Is there any other discussion from the board? Everybody's quiet tonight. Okay.
If it's needed and we can afford it, then why not?
I agree. Agreed, Cody. All right. Then if there's no further discussion, I'll require a motion to approve adding a middle school science/social studies full-time teaching position for the 2023-2024 school year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Doug. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Cody Spangler. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, the school board will perform the first viewing of the proposed 2023-2024 school year calendar.
We have some of our amazing teachers in the audience that made up the calendar review committee. This is something that we started last year. We added a few more people and separated it from last year. It was the negotiations committee that also served as the calendar review.
That's
We formed our own whole separate committee, and I was very, very fortunate that these ladies were willing to be part of that, and they provided some amazing feedback. So the process was that we came together and we met and just talked through a few things, and then they went back to each side of the building and had meetings with their staff and gathered feedback. We came back together and they gave a list of all the things that the staff wanted to see, and it was pretty awesome that we were able to find ways to accommodate all those ideas that came from staff. So I'm gonna turn it over to any of them if they'd like to speak right now and talk about the process or talk about some of the things that we added to the calendar that were requested of the teachers. Any input? I'm gonna keep rolling.
I don't know, I guess it would depend on if you have questions for us, you know, for things that are moved around, or, you know, if anything is, if you have questions about that, that would,
I think we as the committee also felt really good about the process that we started, and
definitely.
we talked through it and had lots of suggestions of things we'd like to see, and it went very smooth to work and work through that, and we felt good about it.
And I think as long as we're checking the boxes, I'm fine with however creative you guys want to, so that it works best for you. I'm good with that. Early dismissal first day, which will be good.
Yeah, that was one that I heard about very early this year that we made sure we included.
And we also.
From all three of my children as well.
We also
Yes.
took the
Yep.
Turner County Fair out of the equation.
Yes, I
Which is
appreciate
just
that
kind of
too.
been
I think that's
something
really
that's
good for the,
come up
especially for the 4-H
consistently.
kids, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it.
So some of the things that you see on here, you'll see 2 days that are blue for staff and service days right at the start of the year. On the right-hand column, you got a date, or you got an item that doesn't have a date by it, and that's because one of the requests with us moving past the Turner County Fair and to still be able to get in the number of days that we felt comfortable with in semester 1 before winter break, staff requested that we do a flex day. So we're still working out some of the details on that, but what we've preliminary discussion was that the first 3 weeks in August, that staff would have that full 8-hour day that they could log that time. If they want to go increments of time, 2 hours here, 2 hours there, they certainly could do that. If they want to come in 1 full day and work and do classroom preparation and just preparing for that first day of school, classroom organization as well, they can do that. And the nice thing is we have that system in place to be able, for staff to be able to log those hours already, so we might as well utilize that system for that day as well.
I like it.
They got the, like you mentioned, Emily mentioned that first day early out. We have Flyer Fridays. The first semester, the staff recommended 3. So we stuck with 3 first semester, and then second semester, we had kind of a log jam that we ran into with the May 3rd date with the elementary having the music contest. It works really good to have a Flyer Friday on that date. But the problem is that the elementary teachers then miss out on that opportunity for that remediation with their students. So to help to offset that, we added that February 2nd Flyer Friday into the mix, and the members of the committee felt that would be something that would help out. And so we rolled with that one for the Flyer Fridays in semester 2 and 3 and semester 1. And then one of the other big changes, this 100% came from staff, would be for conferences. And I think we're all just looking for a solution for conferences. It seems like they are very well attended and beneficial at the elementary level, and then as the kids get older, it just seems to lose momentum. But we're gonna try something at their recommendation for next year that we'll do the 2 till 5:45 in the fall conferences on October 4th. And then on October 5th, we'll go 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that time, for the amount of time outside of the contract, staff contract time, is the same amount of time as the 14th and the 15th.
Okay.
So the 14th and the 15th will be the way we had conferences set up this year. And the idea behind it was we'll experience both next year and see which one we like the best.
Sounds good.
Vacation days, as far as staff days, is exactly the same as last year, so we're at that 175 days. I would like to point out that last year, we dropped from 13 Flyer Fridays to 8. And we decided, as the board decided, that we were gonna use those days, since they're adding the number of student contact days, that we were gonna have 5 built-in snow days into the calendar. So that would be, that's really, those are days that are forgiven from the total number of staff days. So that's something that I think we need to talk about each year. Is that something that we want to continue to do? This year that paid off very well to have those days built in to where we don't have to add on weeks of school at the end. So that would be open for discussion for this review.
I think it worked well to not have, to have some flex built in for that. I don't know, does the staff feel, you're in favor of, yeah, okay. I think it worked well. I like not having to add on, every single one, and that gives you a little bit of flexibility, so. Although if it means we're gonna get this much snow next year, I don't know.
So when you add on, does graduation stay the same day?
Graduation is still for next year with this proposed calendar is still on the 10th. And we
11.
added a few, 11th, thank you. We added a few days in other places, which then pushed it for the last day of school to the 15th. It would have been, if it would have been coinciding date as this year, the last day of school would have been on the 10th, but since we added those days in, we extended it to the 15th, and feedback from staff was that, that's, the 10th is that's early.
That's pretty early,
So
yeah.
going that, into that next week really wasn't met with
Too
any,
bad. Okay, good.
concerns.
I like it. I think it looks great. I'm glad that everybody got to voice their opinion and that we were able to accommodate this stuff, so, looks good.
So it's not an agenda item, it's for first viewing, but if we feel confident about it, I think the feedback from the committee was that they feel good about it, and
Good.
teachers feel good about it, so we could, if we wanted to give the stamp of approval, we could give that motion for approval now, or we can think about it and give that final approval in March.
Thoughts?
I'm good with it.
I am too.
Agreed.
Okay, perfect. Then we'll add an agenda item we'll call it agenda item 3.5, apparently. And I will then, if there's no further discussion, I will need a motion to approve the proposed 2023-2024 school year calendar. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Cody Franzen, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Carissa, all in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next time on the agenda, the school board will hear a proposal to add an indoor batting cage in the hangar.
This one kind of blends into agenda item 9, but we met before the board meeting as a facilities and grounds committee and talked about different locations around the school that would be potential appropriate places for us to be able to put a batting cage. We looked up at the mezzanine, very quickly discovered there's not enough space there. Looked on the stage, would be very challenging to utilize the stage just with all the other curtains and other equipment that's up there. Other areas that have been identified would be the small gym, and then also the hangar, which is part of the motion. So one of the things that we ran into with the hangar is that the lights do hang down fairly low, so they could be recessed up into the rafters. That would create some shadowing that would be happening in that area, which is probably not the end of the world, but bigger concern would probably be as if you hit a ball and it hits the net, it's gonna have about 2 feet where it could potentially go further than where the net is actually located. So that could potentially cause some damages with the nets. In the auxiliary gym, one of the benefits of that is or the small gym, it's a wide open space. But the disadvantage would be we'd have to look at a more expensive option, something that would get that net up into the rafters, and would require a lift that would, motorized lift that would allow that to happen. Another advantage with the auxiliary gym is it does have more space, so potential for a bigger cage. Christie has gotten some quotes for different nets. Those are included in your packet. You can see the total for those nets is the 9,567. That's a number you don't want to focus on, because if you see up top, it's got a 55-inch cage, and then it's also got a 70-inch
Oh,
cage.
gotcha. 2 options.
Obviously, we wouldn't go with both, we'd go with
Right.
one or the other. If we did go in the elementary gym, 70 feet would be something that would be a very realistic option. Things for us to consider as we decide if this is a purchase that we want to make, would be that eventually baseball is going to be a sanctioned sport. Pitching mound for baseball is at 60 feet 6 inches, so 70 feet
Sure.
would be very valuable for
Okay.
baseball in the future. Softball is 43 feet for the pitching plate, so that would be more than enough space to accommodate softball. So a couple things the board needs to consider in our discussion is, number one, is this something we even want to do? You look outside and the 5 feet of snow in most places. This is ultimately what was kind of disappointing for me when spring was targeted for the date or the season for softball. Is that, yeah, I was at this every spring. There's always, the first 2 weeks minimum that are inside. In a lot of cases, it's as much as a month where the practices are inside. And if you don't have an adequate place to hit, that's gonna be really tough, and those practices are not gonna be a whole lot of fun. So, we gotta decide, is this something that we wanna do? And then if we do decide that we wanna do it, what's the tolerance for the cost that will go into it, and then also what location would we be looking at?
Amber, thoughts?
How many thoughts do you want?
Oh, I want them all.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, cost is, that's on you guys, but, so, yeah, advantages and disadvantages, things I thought of when it was brought up to me. To put it in the hangar are, you're gonna use it in the winter, which is the same time as wrestling season. So do you have to remove the mats every time you go in there?
Right.
Do you give kids access to it 24/7?
Right.
If you don't remove the mats, you're going to put a flooring on top of it.
Right. Tonight,
So, that creates issues, because every time you move those mats, they don't fit in there perfectly, so
right.
there's that. The lighting, which we talked about, those big windows in there, so hitting balls, you're gonna have balls going out of those cages.
Right.
It's just nature of the beast. And then rolling the machine in and out, again, you're gonna have to move the floor.
Yeah.
So during wrestling season, it doesn't make sense to me to have a batting cage in the wrestling room. Or
And that's
in
kind
the
of the
hangar.
prime time that you would want
That's,
that available for your,
yeah, if you think about
softball
kids
coach.
working off-season in a sport,
Right,
winter would be when they would work on it,
Right.
right?
for
So,
sure.
just like basketball, off-season would be maybe in the summer,
Mhm.
the gym's open, so it,
Right.
different time there. What else did I think of? Yeah, so that was my big concern is, and the ceiling height of the hangar too, isn't the best for, in my opinion, a batting cage.
Sure. What
So,
location would you prefer, if you could,
elementary gym.
the elementary?
Because plus if I'm running a practice during, during the winter, or not the winter, but once the season starts and there's still 5 feet of snow outside, with potentially up to 30 girls, I don't wanna be running in and out of these rooms trying to help
Right,
30 girls by myself.
right,
So, that would make the most sense to me,
okay.
would be in the elementary gym. Yeah, and I think one of the systems you and I had looked at was that hook thing. I don't know much about it. I didn't have time to process much of that information, but, I don't know if that's an option for the elementary gym as well.
The quote that you have in the picture, the least expensive,
Yeah.
right? It had, these anchors on the wall, and then you just hook these in there, and
Oh, yeah,
there's
I see that.
tension with that, and, I think the sales pitch said it takes 3 to 5
Yeah.
minutes. Okay, I'm not buying that.
No,
but-
no.
I watched the video, yes, it took these 4
Men.
college men
Yeah.
with this cart.
Okay.
They had probably done it 35 times.
Right.
Yes,
Sure.
but anyway,
Right.
we did look at that a little bit, and,
Yeah.
I don't know. And yes, in the elementary gym, you'd have some kind of flooring, or,
Yeah,
I've seen some of that too in these, sale things, some tartan, or whatever it might
turf,
be.
turf type.
But
stuff.
you'd have something you'd roll down there too, but,
Mhm.
yeah, I think there's a lot of options.
I also did acquire a batting cage net from the city of Sioux Falls, which I went and got. It's sitting in my garage. I would like to bring it here. My husband would really like me to bring it here. I don't know how big it is because it's in winter, so I can't roll it out outside and measure it. So I'd like to bring it into the shop, measure it, look at
Sure.
it, see if it's something we can use. The school can have it. It's free. That's gonna save the school $2,000 on net. It just needs, even if it's an outside net, it just needs the poles.
Okay,
If it's an inside net, I don't know if it can be used on a pulley system, I have no idea.
Okay,
But in the city of Sioux Falls, they used it as an outside net batting cage with poles. I didn't acquire the poles, I only got the net.
sure.
So, I mean, that's
That would be an
something
option.
that the school can have, saves the school money on whatever they're gonna use it for,
Mhm.
whether it's outside or inside.
Okay.
So, and I'll try to get that in here this week and get it measured and I'll get that information to you. And I wanna look at it too. It looks brand new, I mean, practically brand new.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's issues with it, but something to use.
Christy, do you think during the winter, I mean, in the elementary gym, I know that there's a lot of different basketball practices and whatnot, do you think that'll be an issue for scheduling? Just, I mean, I know you can't tell the future, but.
You know, Amber, she did schedule some stuff, you know,
Sure.
during this basketball season,
And
you
it
know,
wasn't
at a night when
too
kids
prohibitive.
came in. Yeah, I mean, it is busy
Right.
with youth things. I mean,
At least we have the community center too, I mean, you know, for
Right.
those youth basketball
Right.
practices, at least there's another facility in town, which is
there
nice.
is. And I do, I mean, our students come first.
Right,
And so if
Yeah.
they have something, then,
100%.
and,
Yeah.
right, all of those folks are good about that too,
Mhm.
but, yeah,
Okay.
it's feasible.
Okay.
You want the buildings and ground take?
Yes, sure,
So,
please.
yes, elementary gym would be our preference on where we go.
Mhm.
Couple things, if anything comes in over $25,000, we've got to put it out for bid.
Oh, yeah,
So what we discussed was, obviously not having all the information and not talking about this, is, needs to be a retractable system,
okay,
something that can be cranked up. Well, that means the net drops off and gets removed, and the pulley system and the cables, the ropes simply get cranked up in there, or the whole assembly gets cranked up in there,
okay,
because with high school practices and other things,
right,
and on the weekends, who's gonna police that? Little kids are gonna be crawling on it, they're gonna be on top of it, it's kind of
Yeah.
a safety hazard, so we're very much more in favor of looking at spending possibly more money to have a system that's more permanent, more durable, and
Okay.
that we can remove.
Okay.
That being said, without having all the information, obviously, I think we would be comfortable recommending that if a system can be found for that $22,000 to $23,000,
mhm,
we're good with, as long as we can review what it is and making sure it checks all the boxes, proceeding. If it's beyond that, obviously, we have to bid it out, so if we can get you guys to come up with some criteria, just to send out for quotes, and that way, if we have to take the next step and go to a formal RFP process, we've got something out. Cause, you know, there's probably a dozen different gym equipment companies that would give us numbers, and a couple in Sioux Falls, but if we don't really tell them exactly what we want, or kind of the baseline criteria for what we're wanting, we're gonna get all kinds of different numbers, so. But we're in favor of a more permanent system, and then also figuring out the cost of what we're gonna do for floor protection.
oh, sure,
Since it's wood floor, so we'll have to probably do something a little bit heavier, turf style, within a 10 or 15 foot radius of where you're gonna hit, and then something beyond that, and it can be whatever you want it to be, whatever you feel comfortable with, just something to put on the floor.
I mean, if we're looking at getting, I mean, you know, just with all of the shipping delays and whatnot, is this gonna even be something that could possibly be used this season?
You're probably in that 4 to 8 week window, I would say, at a minimum,
Okay,
so maybe
So
not,
maybe,
but
yeah.
a lot of that's gonna be based on cost too.
right,
We might find a cheaper option that's a year out, that maybe that's not the best route, because we lose
Right.
a year of use, but
right,
I just think it needs some deeper discussion and
yeah, I agree, no, that's,
some more
that's,
options to look at, but
Mhm.
I think we're both, Cody brought up a good point, we wanna see what the mesh is, if it's pretty tight, so we can use it for baseball and possibly even golf, if there's a hybrid there.
mhm,
Instead of just one sport, you know, when you can
Absolutely.
incorporate
I
all the
love
sports,
that.
and if
That's
baseball's coming down the line, hey, let's make sure that they're small enough that baseballs stay inside too, so.
If we're gonna do it, there's no sense in doing 55 feet.
Right.
I would agree, I think the auxiliary gym is the best idea.
It's killing us not to go out there and
I know. I just saw him scampering away. You could feel all of our eyes on him. Okay, that's, yeah, that seems like a reasonable, that seemed reasonable to you, Amber?
Absolutely.
Okay. So do we want to, go ahead and table this for March's meeting so that we can actually have numbers in front of us with timeframes and processes.
I think that's a decision we make to say if we're gonna say, here's the spending limit, if it checks all the boxes,
Right.
or if we wanna table it and vote on it in the meeting.
Yeah, what do you guys think? What do you feel more comfortable with? I know Cody and Doug, you feel comfortable moving forward, you've discussed it in your facilities and grounds, Carissa, Cody?
I go either way. If we set the criteria and it checks all the boxes, then I don't think it needs to be rehashed out.
That's my role, is that?
Okay. Sounds good, so then we'll make a motion to proceed with that as long as it's less than, as long as it's around that $22,000-23,000
I would say it
mark.
gives us some wiggle room if we have to buy some extra flooring or something
Right,
beyond that to.
Okay.
Or
right,
some, piece of equipment to get it up and running.
Right.
So.
okay. Sounds good. Thanks for your input, Amber, really appreciate it. Then we'll require a motion to approve the acceptance of a quote for an indoor batting cage for the hangar as long as it meets the aforementioned criteria. Do I-
Leave out the hangar part, we'll probably.
Oh,
say
not from the
cage
hangar, sorry,
for the
not for the
s-
hangar, sorry, I'm just
For the school
reading
district.
it. Just for an indoor batting cage for, yeah.
Yes.
All right, do I have a motion?
So,
Motion by Carissa. Doug, would you like the second?
sure.
All right, second by Doug. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, the school board will hold a discussion about the strength coach position.
So unfortunately, we lost our strength coach, and this was about a month ago, a little less than a month, right after our last board meeting, that when Christy and I met with him, and he just said that it just wasn't what he thought it was gonna be as far as being able to commit to the mornings. Working over in Marion and having to get here and then get back there was just too much of a challenge, and we said, we get it, we understand, you don't know until you try something, and but here we sit where we do not have that position. We've fallen back on what we've done in the past, and that we just pay individual people the set hour, or set rate per morning workout session to come in and supervise. And the board would have to weigh in on this. Do we want to consider posting and trying to rehire for that position? Do we want to just continue with this school year and continue to pay different individuals to come in at what we've used in the past? That system works. It doesn't create much consistency for the kids, but it definitely has proven that it works. And then any other options that the board would have, just since we had that resignation, wanted to put that out to the board and ask for your feedback on how you would like us to proceed.
Sure. Personally, I think, we're already getting pretty late into spring. And then, we can figure out what we wanna, do for the summer, if we wanna offer Coach Rosie or whatever. Again, that's been really well attended and lots of really good feedback from it last year. I know, and then we can even assess in the fall, perhaps even the middle school, social studies, science position that we have, maybe it's somebody that has an interest in doing something like that. So I wouldn't mind just having that left open if we have a teaching position, especially just in case there happens to be a candidate that really, has a passion for strength conditioning. And I think, otherwise the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, those 3 guys that come in has worked thus far. And I just think, if we post it, open it, interview again, wait, whatever, it's gonna be, April before that person even starts, and then what's the point for 1 month, I guess, but that's my thought.
I'm fine with not trying to hire anybody for it.
We're gonna be posting for full-time position and some assistant coaching positions, so I think that's something that can be brought up with those interviews if there's interest in, from one of those candidates. As far as a separate posting, I don't know that, I would agree, I don't know that makes a lot of sense right now.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I'm good with not having it.
Okay. Cody, any Strong thoughts either way?
I would wait.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Next item on the agenda, the school board will review the clean diesel grant rebate agreement and the source well quote for the new school bus.
2 weeks ago, I filled out the application for the clean diesel grant, and happy to report that we have been given the opportunity to accept that grant if the board wishes. Included in your packet would be the rebate agreement. So at the top of that first page, you can see the maximum rebate amount, which equates to 25% of the cost of a new bus, is $31,752.45. And then the next page in your packet is the Sourcewell quote that we got from Harlow's. And the amount for that quote for a new bus, which would be the same specifications that we have for the bus that we just received, was $127,009.81. So 25% of that would be the $31,752.45. The steps for the board would be to discuss if we want to go the direction of accepting this rebate. If we do accept this rebate, then Emily would sign it, and I would move forward with working through Harlow's to purchase a new bus. Harlow's has shared that it's a minimum of 10 months before we're seeing any
Okay,
buses.
that was gonna be my question.
So a significant amount of time before we would actually receive the bus, but that just stresses the importance of making sure that we are continuing to work years in advance for how we can update our fleet, because we do have some buses that are getting up there with miles.
Within that 10 to 12 month, do we have a bus that would be at that mileage point that would require that we replace it, essentially?
The bus that we've identified would be with the highest mileage, and then it's one of the older buses that doesn't have the exhaust systems, the DEF. That really is why this grant exists, is to try to filter those buses out of the economy. And one of the things with this grant, if we do accept it, we have to salvage that bus. So we identified bus one, which is highest miles, and one of the older buses that doesn't have that exhaust system.
Is that the same one with the window issues?
Well, I guess that it depends on who you talk to. Our buses were certified, but there is other feedback that we've received that there's multiple buses that potentially have some window issues as well that we need to keep an eye on.
Who draws the short straw and has to file these reports?
Have you ever done the clean diesel? Yeah, I've never experienced the clean diesel grant, but like most grants, usually it's you receive the dollars and you gotta submit, that you've actually gone through the process, and for the actual salvage part of it, I did speak with Harlow's, and Harlow's is familiar with what, because they get a lot of clean diesel grants that come through them, and they're familiar with the process. They shared that they would take the bus, and since it has to be salvaged, you have to drill a hole into the block of the engine, so it can no longer be used. You gotta take pictures of that before you drill the hole. After you drill the hole,
wow.
You gotta cut the chassis in half, so if the chassis can't be used for anything, they'll go through that and cut that chassis in half, and then take pictures and send everything that we need to do to submit back to the grants, the clean diesel grant, to prove that we have salvaged the bus. They'll take care of that part for us.
So looking at this here, like, we've had that many buses down, that all our spare buses have that many miles on them over the last month.
The highest would be bus one. So bus one is in the 170.
181,000. 184.
Yeah, 184, sorry. Some of our other spares that are not as high, excuse me, in miles, but something we'll have to consider in the future. Do we want to keep them if they're looking like around, I want to say 111, no, somewhere around the low 100s, that we could keep and use it as a spare, even though it doesn't have the updated exhaust system that they're really pushing right now. We could still use it as a spare bus and keep that rolling until it gets up there in miles to where we feel like we would wanna move on from it. On a route bus, when I'm told by the bus drivers is they put on about 25 to 30,000 miles a year
Mhm.
for a regular, everyday running route bus.
And then if they go to an activity, they take their route bus or they take a different bus?
Depends, Debbie might be able to speak more to this one.
Usually they take their route bus unless it's the smaller bus when there's on a.
Oh, sure, makes sense.
So that mileage is not including activities that you just spoke of? Is that right?
Or, hopefully that is included, did we?
There, it's broke out on the bus report if you have this here,
Oh, yeah.
Activity.
by month.
Yep.
How much usable lifespan would you guess if we didn't purchase a new one, that we're gonna get out of that spare that we're gonna scrap? Is it one more year, or what state of it?
Yeah, you know, it's a spare bus, it all depends on how much we use it for, if other buses break down, we have to use it, if we use it for activities. So it has to be 3 years, for the grant, is, if my memory serves me correct, that it has to be expected that there's a minimum of 3 years left.
Oh,
of
really?
use.
Okay.
So I think I put 3 years on that bus, but
Right.
with
It's
the
the same.
usage, they could last, 5, 6 years, and it all depends on how much we use, and obviously throughout that time, you don't know what the ongoing maintenance is gonna be
Right.
as well.
How many miles do you get on a bus typically before you? 170 doesn't seem like a lot, maybe more than a minute.
Our bus drivers, we're in a great situation where we have some bus drivers that have been around for a long time. They've been through multiple superintendents, and the approach for the Freeman district, back to a few superintendents back, was that they progressively built in a new bus, over time, and have it every 2 years, 3 years, so you're constantly, updating your fleet as time went on. We've switched away from that a little bit and taken more of the philosophy of let's drive them until they're dead. But our bus drivers, they do have a lot of experience, and, they've shared that when the bus gets to that 200,000 miles, that's when it really starts having issues, and we start seeing some more costly repairs that are needed, and
Sure.
in their turn start nickeling and diming you.
Mhm. Debbie, what are your thoughts?
It's up to you guys. I'm not the expert.
Any bus drivers in the crowd? Chris? A little bit?
I don't think classify myself as a bus driver, really.
Is that same grant always available? I mean, 'cause we just got a bus this year, so if you're waiting, you're trying to cycle out every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, we could wait, that was part of Debbie and I's discussion, we could wait till next year. December is when it's due, and then you usually get awarded in January or early February. If we wait another year, it all depends on, the risk would be waiting another year, or is it still gonna be a 10-month lead time, or is it gonna be longer?
Also, the price already went up from the last time we purchased our last bus a year ago, up by 25%. So that's something to consider as well. We sure hope it doesn't go up another
What's the
25,
length of
that's
this?
what I'm saying.
What's our cutoff to reapply?
So I asked her that question, because it does say in here that there's a certain, by August maybe, that we have to have the new bus, and she had shared with me that they are granting extensions on that a heavy amount of their buses from last year still haven't been delivered yet, so.
Right.
they're-
I think
I
it's
was
just-
wondering if we can't get a little bit closer to setting the budget for next year before we make this decision.
Oh, gotcha. They made an exception, I don't know the answer to that, but I can share with you that the grant closed in December.
Mhm.
I reached out to them, and when I connected with the individual that's responsible for the grants, she said that she would encourage us to apply because she had some dollars left available.
Mhm.
Typically, that wouldn't happen, just so happens that we're in a year where they haven't used the dollars that they would like to use, and if they don't use the grant dollars available, they're at risk of not receiving the same amount of grant dollars in future years, so I can't answer that question, but I can tell you that this is, we should have had this if we were gonna proceed, and we should have had it submitted back in December.
Right.
We're very fortunate that those dollars are still available if we decide to go that direction right now.
Have we put, just looking at the monthly, have we put 7,000 miles on that bus since in the last 2 years? Or do they check that close?
Answer that.
Because that's one of the conditions of the award. I don't know how close they check either, but I'm just reading through the criteria. And there's a bunch of reports, but that's one of the ones that sticks out to me, is you have to prove that you burn at least 7,000 miles a year on that particular bus the last 2 years.
She used
Yeah.
184 gallons of fuel in the last year. I wouldn't say that was 7,000 miles.
So they requested that, that's part of what they have to submit for their grant, their federal grant for the emissions
Mm.
portion of it, so.
Yeah.
They didn't give any negative feedback when we shared that amount. So I would assume that it's kosher what we're eating.
Right.
They issued us a grant.
They should just, right, exactly.
Another option would be that we decline the grant and we look for used bus options. A risk for that is that, and a part of it is the product of this grant is that you have to salvage your bus.
Right.
So there's not a ton of used buses that are out there. You can find them. I'm talking to Ron White from Harlow's. They said there's ones that become available. Just a matter of searching around, finding what we would find or what we believe would be a bus that's still in good shape and something that would improve our situation with our current buses that are starting to get a little higher in miles.
Mm.
Another option would be we just drive the ones we got till they fall apart.
I don't love that. I guess I would be in favor for pursuing it because of the very long lead time of at least 10 months to 12 months, and because of the continued increase in cost, I guess. Plus, there's no guarantee that this grant or these dollars will be available, and I do like the fact that we're saving $31,000 on it.
Well, we're gonna have another bus hitting 200,000 sometime next year.
Yeah.
And then one not far behind it.
Exactly.
We've got another one with almost 150 on it, so.
I think it's better to be proactive rather than reactive, especially if you're, out on a rural road, especially with how cold it's been in the snow, and then you've got this bus full of kids with a bus that isn't, safe or operational, but open to other folks' thoughts as well.
Yeah, 184,000 seems a little premature for replacement, but nothing gets cheaper. And it saves a pretty substantial amount of money.
And it takes so long. It's not gonna have 140 or 84,000 miles on it when we actually get something to replace it.
I'm not opposed to Doug's idea about waiting for the new budget either to know where the money is exactly coming from.
That would be the way I'd be leaning, is waiting till we get closer to budget time.
Okay.
lose this, which sucks, but
Mhm. It is open to apply for the
We
2023.
can always ask for an extension too, I mean, they gave it to us after the date was already closed in December, so. You know, we have to ask. Yeah,
Don't really ask until you ask.
if the dollars are gonna be there.
Right?
I feel a little more comfortable just knowing we're gonna be on budget for next year, especially if we're adding a full-time position.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. I can see that. So what would be your target as far as when?
Well, if we're looking at 10 to 12 months, obviously, I would think we wanna be pulling the trigger in August, so we're getting it by the
Right.
following school year.
Debbie, you think that we would have a good enough kind of thought on what budget looks like by August to make an informed decision? Okay,
If it's still available.
right.
Mhm. Ron did say that the quote was, he's told they're good for a year. I'm sure there's no guarantees with that.
Right.
So I don't know what our quote would
Right.
look like if this is not, an accurate quote at that point in time.
Sure.
Like Emily said, it's gone up even since last year for the exact same model of bus. It's gone up.
27,
Yeah.
over 27,000. Any other thoughts?
No, I like waiting,
Okay.
not denying that we potentially need a bus, but just
Right,
making sure
but
that
due
dollars are
diligence.
there for it. And then run a few more miles out of it in the meantime.
Maybe readdress and rediscuss maybe closer to that July, August timeframe. Cody, you're gonna be so sad that you're gonna miss out on that, aren't you? All right, so I'll go through this, but I'm anticipating that this is going to actually fail for lack of motion. For agenda item number 8, will require a motion to approve acceptance of the clean diesel grant, the Sourcewell quote for a new school bus. All right, that motion fails due to lack of motion. All right, facilities and grounds committee report.
Rooftop unit for the hangar, we got the new ship date last week, and it is on this little boat from China, so March 17th is the new date that we received from Dyson, the equipment manufacturer, so we're hoping to install it the week of March 24th.
Anything else? It's good? Okay.
Sidewalk quote, we want to talk about that.
that's coming up.
Yeah, that'll be the
That's
next
next one.
item on the agenda. School board will discuss the quote received for the main entry handicap accessible hallway, or walkway.
So in your packet, you have a quote that I got from Kerner Construction. Total for, so this would be, what I was directed to get a quote for from the board at one of our previous meetings, was to go with the walkway that had more of the arched look to it, further away from the building. And then there's a couple other things that we added in there with adding a box where it connects to each of the existing heated sidewalks.
sure.
So hopefully that would prevent the heaving that happens when it gets that precipitation or the water that gets down there from the heated portion of the sidewalk into the non-heated portion of it. So this would include repair of the existing area where it currently connects, and then adding a walkway down to in between the flagpole, just to the left of the flagpole. And then it would be demolition and construction of a new pad at the bottom that would meet ADA compliance, and the walkway itself would be ADA compliant with the pitch.
Okay.
Anything that I missed there, Doug?
No.
Any other questions or further discussion? Okay. If there's no further discussion, I will require a motion to approve acceptance of the quote for the main entry handicap accessible walkway. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Cody Franzen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Doug. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, the school board will hear a policy review committee report and perform the first reading of the following district policies. And there's a million of them.
I was gonna say, take your eye.
I am
lids open.
not gonna read all of them.
We'll give you more down.
Perfect. Love it.
Okay, the first one we had already in our policies, but we always compare it, we don't do the
Sure.
other one, and there were two paragraphs that really just weren't necessary in ours,
Okay.
so we decided to get rid of those.
Strike them. Yep.
Next one, GCJ, professional staff time schedules. I think we actually opted to pass on this one.
Okay.
As most things were discussed and dictated in contract, so this was a little too vague to all encompass.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There was a staff workload, ours and the ASB were the same, so no changes.
Okay.
That goes for the next one also.
Okay.
And for the staff evaluation, ours said every other year, the other one said every year. We were gonna clarify what we really do.
And I'll let the principals talk to what our current practice is for observations. Shane,
State
refresh.
requirement through accreditation, because I sat through that, is
Another riveting.
non-tenured every year, tenured every other year.
Okay.
That is the requirement.
State.
Through
That was-
accreditation through the state.
That was, the ASB said that, right? So we just need to delete one word out of
Actually, I
ours.
think our current, if my memory serves me correct, our current policy said every other year for,
That's correct,
yeah.
but we do it every year.
No, we match with,
Non-tenured is
yeah, every other year.
Or, I'm sorry, the tenured is
Is every year, yes.
Fourth contract year, every other.
Yes. And that is the requirement, and that is what you need to get your accreditation.
And GCN was it GCPA?
No change?
Yeah, we're getting rid of that one because it's verbatim. What we currently have, GCPB. I think we were gonna accept this one, but we were looking for a specific number for damages that may be assessed. That's per my notes. Yeah, there's some recommendations between $200 and $500,
Oh, okay.
from their sample policy.
Mhm.
So we just needed some clarification on that, and then we revised adopting theirs.
And the next one, if someone needs to be put on leave due to an investigation, they are paid while the investigation is going on, but not once the verdict is met.
Sure.
We're gonna adopt that, we did not have one.
Okay.
And GCPD, I think we opted to no, because ours was verbatim with that one as well.
Okay.
And you guys' is committing a lot more fun than ours.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Trade you.
Yeah. And I would definitely try it.
GCPDA, professional staff member administration leave with pay, we're going to adopt theirs. Seems to be our common practice already, but it'll put it into policy. And then the whole bunch of letters, tutoring for pay, we're opting to not, it's just not necessary for us to have anything like that.
Okay.
Same with the following, professional research and posting, just not something that probably is going to ever be an issue. And GDA support staff positions, we have to adopt it, I don't think we had anything clearly defining that on file. And same as the next one for non-certified staff.
They had an evaluation attached, but we said we didn't need it because we had our own way, our own contracts and certifications.
Okay.
And the next one talks about if support staff works overtime, they get paid overtime. We said that was fine.
Mhm.
We didn't have one of those, so we adopted.
Staff fringe benefits, we have same thing for minimum file.
Okay.
Don't need it. And, support staff leave of absences, we're passing on, it seems like it's all FMLA stuff
Okay.
already, so. Don't think you need any
Address to
attention.
Sure.
Same with NPN, policies and regulations are the same already. Oh, I messed up that order.
What do you got next? I got support staff probation.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, same, not necessary, we have it on.
Okay.
Then support staff assignments and transfers, we have no, it needs some of the language amended before we'd be interested in,
Oh, okay.
what else? Unless I thought that was I thought it was the one we talked about earlier, but I haven't check marked to add it, so
Okay.
there's that.
It was okay, we read it and it was okay, so we adopted it.
It's pretty good, see if you want to read it.
Same with the next one.
Okay.
It's fine to adopt. And our evaluation policy
Right.
is okay as is.
What was it, GU, support staff promotions, not needed.
Next one not needed also.
And ours is the same on policies and resignation of support staff members.
Okay.
Don't need that one. We're getting close, retirement of support staff members is not needed.
Okay.
And the suspension and dismissal of support staff members is okay as is, the policy in place.
Awesome. Thanks for doing that.
So if you'd like to read them on your own before we approve them next time, you feel free, let us know.
Sure
If you
will.
have any qualms.
Cody just asked if I would update the changes, and I'll do the straight through and.
With the red line. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
The next, for the second reading.
Okay. Sounds good. So great, next item on the agenda, the school board will hear an update from the Phoenix Co-op Advisory Board members, that's Doug and myself. We met, myself, Jake, Christy, all met with Doug and I, and then we met with the administrator, AD, and two board members from Freeman Academy as well as from Marion on Monday, January 31st, to further discuss any feedback in regards to extending the co-op to any additional sports beyond what we have with wrestling, football, and softball. You do have your ADMs comparing the three schools as well as participation numbers and percentages. And here, looking at the breakout for the sports that we were discussing. And so we kind of discussed that, and really how it ended was, as we do for football, the cost to each district is based on the number of participants that they have. Based on looking at the percentages of, this past year, it essentially came out to 60% Freeman Public, and then the remainder of the, it was between 60 and 70% depending upon the sport, and then 30 to 40% was Marion and Freeman Academy. And so what I had suggested is if we're going to move forward, it would need to at least, it should follow that, because if we're paying that much for the sport, then that many home games should be played at each respective, place. And certainly that'd be open to interpretation. If all of a sudden then Marion has, you know, a whole bunch of kids, it would make sense then for a majority of the games to, you know, be there when they're paying, that higher percentage amount. Doug also brought up the possibility of adding in other shared services, so sharing, you know, industrial arts for our classes without having to do, you know, that huge expense by ourselves, but being able to partner with Marion and potentially share a teacher similar to what we do for art currently, and looking at even FCCLA, of course, you know, they're in need, they have some kids that would love to participate in marching band, but they don't have a large enough band to do that. We have an amazing FFA program that, again, they don't have, so it'd be kind of a more, you know, what each of us excels at and being able to open that up to the other schools so that kids could get more opportunities. And that was taken in, and they just said that they would have to talk to their respective boards and get back to us, and then they would let us know when they wanted to meet again, so. Doug, anything else I missed?
We did look at numbers, both of their schools provided their enrollment and participation numbers. Trend-wise, Marion is staying pretty static for the next few years and then declining. Freeman Academy really starts a steep decline after 2 years, to the point where in multiple sports they may not even have a participant. So obviously the discussion on split came up, and you know, part of our discussion was, you know, last time when the proposal was offered to all three boards, it was a 70-30 split. The numbers fluctuate a little bit, but they're pretty strong, dictating 60 to a little over 60% of the participation coming from Freeman, and the other 30 to 40 coming from Marion and Freeman Academy. That being said, we have put much more money into our facilities here and continue to than any other district, and have nicer facilities. So, you know, we reiterated that was part of our reasoning at the time for wanting that 70-30 to split, and there wasn't any disagreement with that. I think the next hurdle for us as a group is to decide, if we add shared services, how we separate that from a sports co-op. It's a sports co-op, but we want to find a possible avenue to make it more attractive for everybody that's involved, and with a private school in the mix too.
Right, I was just gonna say.
That's gonna take some time to figure out how that looks,
And they're
if it
on a
works.
trimester versus our semester, so there will be a lot of different kind of just things that need to be looked at to see if it would even be feasible, or if they even have interest. That's totally up to them. Any questions?
From conversations I've had with people in our community and some in Marion as well, I'm a big fan of the 60-40 split with Marion and not making it contingent upon the shared services. Albeit I like the idea of sharing the services, it just, I think a nice clean
That has to
full
be
sports co-op.
separate from, I'm sure that also has to be separate from sports, I mean, like, as part of an agreement. I don't know how that all works, I guess,
it
but,
would have to be,
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
It's just more of a long-term commitment for
right.
districts to
Yeah.
show that they're committed to not only the sports co-op, but
I think it'd be
sharing
really
the
nice for,
resources.
you know, kids again that don't, you know, necessarily play sports, but maybe do want those, you know, the industrial tech, the FCCLA. I think it'd be really nice to add that in general, but,
I did include in your packet the split for the Phoenix
Yes.
Co-op, and this is something that was just presented to me by Debbie this morning, or this afternoon. So that's a good indicator right there of the percentages and what we're paying as a district based off the participation rates, and as you can see in that bottom left corner, the Freeman's percentage that we're paying for Phoenix football is 69% of the total bill, so.
which will become consistent across all sports in beyond 2 years based on enrollment and participation.
right. Freeman Academy did say that, you know, their numbers for their high school do vary widely because of their boarding students, and so they did want to provide that caveat that they weren't sure what those numbers would look differently depending upon interest in the boarding students, although I guess I don't know, I didn't ask what their traditional, sports participation is for those students. So I don't know if that would make a difference in participation or not, but,
That, somebody asked that question, I believe it was, one of the Marion folks, and it was not answered.
okay, yeah, okay, good that I didn't miss it. So, essentially, we presented them with a lot of information, and, shared services is something that we talked about, like, way at the beginning of the Phoenix Co-op, discussions, but something that we haven't really chatted about, just because we really, we're in a tight timeline to get football all established and get an agreement in place so that we could have a football team. And so, it hadn't been discussed for a while, so they did wanna take, all that information back. There's some new board members and things like that, so, just waiting for them to get some feedback and to reach back out. But we told them we're more than happy to meet and discuss further, but we had a very transparent discussion with them, all based on a lot of Excel spreadsheet data, so. That's it for the Phoenix Co-op. Updates, school board will hold a discussion about alternative meeting dates for the March school board meeting, and then while we're at it, we'll also look at potential dates for teacher negotiations.
So it would normally be on
The 13th.
13th.
Mm-hmm.
And someone can't be here on the 13th.
Which I'm happy to, if it doesn't work for anybody to do a different date, it is completely fine to keep it on that, but I just wanted to open it up for
So when are you
discussion
gone?
that entire week.
The 20th?
13th through the 7th.
Yes. We'll do it the 20th.
Huh? What?
When we move it to the 20th.
Work fine for me.
20th work for you.
I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm just gonna say yes, and my wife doesn't yell at me when I get home, then it's good to go.
When we go too late. then
I was just gonna say,
we run
Debbie,
into
what is-
Bills being late and we pay late charges and.
How about the 7th?
I can't
I
do
don't have
the
a
7th.
school calendar in front of me. I have no
It's,
clue.
boys basketball, so like 16 on 7th.
Sixth,
Can we do a Wednesday,
That
the
works.
Wednesday night?
15th?
I'm gone.
eighth,
Maybe it's a Tuesday?
I'm gone.
Eighth is
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
You're gone on the 8th?
We can sure keep it to, we can sure just keep it to the 13th. And I just won't be here. Cody, it's your show.
Well, you can,
You can let her
no,
know.
you can keep it the 6th, the 8th, and I just won't be here.
I can't be here the 6th or the 8th either.
How about the 7th though? That's boys basketball.
I know, guys, mine.
We have to be,
I work Monday night.
if we go too early, then we don't have the bills. If we go too late, then they're late. That's why I like to keep it in that same week if that's possible.
both of you are?
Yep.
We can just keep it the 13th.
Cody's
I'm
gone
gone.
on the 13th.
Oh, you're gone
I'm
also?
free one.
Okay, that's right, maybe that, okay. Is there a way to, I know we've done this in the past, to call the credit card companies in advance and explain the situation and ask for an extension?
That's not just the credit card companies either.
Okay.
It's the phone bills and the.
I can call
What about the 15th for you, Cody?
Nope.
You can't?
Could you have a phone call maybe to pay the bills and then just do your regular business?
Just thinking outside the box.
What about the 9th? What's going on that day?
Check your basketball on the 9th?
State girls basketball tournament.
State girls.
Well, we can always book it in no show if there's basketball.
But do we, why don't we do the morning of the 9th? So I'll get up early.
If we have done mornings, board meetings,
Problem is, I work the 8th, so we'll be back till
Till,
at least
8:30?
8:30.
okay.
So we get it in at least.
Oh, can we say 9 o'clock then?
Yeah.
Yes.
Give me a little more time. to get
On the 9th?
Mm-hmm.
I can do that. Okay. And issue paying the late.
Is that okay for the rest of you?
9 AM.
I'll be
is that what
here.
you're saying?
Yeah.
Just have to tell the kids to, I suppose we could have a meeting in there.
They could attend,
Office.
what fun.
Yeah.
What all the fun things
Yeah,
that we
our
discussed
meeting
today.
Right.
We'll do another policy review update and
Can I get coverage for
really keep them interested.
Thursday.
That's it.
Thursday?
9:05, my kids are out of your room.
9 o'clock.
Mr. Buck, can I get coverage for my class?
I'm tired of teaching PE.
And we probably need a motion for that, right?
Huh?
We need a
Mhm.
motion for that.
Yep. Okay.
I make a motion that you bring us cinnamon rolls again like the last morning meeting we had.
I know, I don't land until midnight, we'll have to see. Maybe make them ahead of time. Or if I don't sleep, that could work too.
Sacrifice.
Crock pot, egg bake.
Crock pot, I think I could bring that. That's right, the last time I did bring breakfast, didn't I?
Alright, so you wanna do teacher negotiations right away before we make this motion, or you wanna make this motion?
No,
and then-
let's make this motion. We'll make a motion to move the March school board meeting to March 9th, 2023. That's a Thursday at 9 AM. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Cody Franzen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Doug. All in favor, say aye.
Alright.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And then discussion about potential dates for teacher negotiations.
So I emailed the negotiators tonight and shared with them that I was gonna request dates from you guys, and then I'll present those dates to them, and then they can choose a date, and then the board at our March 9th meeting can make a motion to have a special board meeting on that designated date
Okay.
for negotiations.
Okay, gotcha. What about March 20th, day? We're looking at it anyway. Yes?
Works for me. 20th, 21st, 23rd, 27th, 28th, 30th.
I'm gonna do the 20th, 21st, 22nd,
Not the 22nd.
23rd, I could do.
20th and 21st, both good for everybody?
Mhm.
Regular time for all these, 7 o'clock.
Yep. That's for me.
The 20th, 21st, any other dates that we want to throw out there? Last year was March 28th. That'd be
Yeah, I was gonna say that next week,
27th,
27th, 28th,
28th.
work for me too.
What day's veto
April 15th.
day? No, veto day out of here.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
27th,
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, I can make sure.
No, no, done on the 27th.
20. We did the 28th last year, we had all the,
27th does not work.
okay.
27th does not work, okay. But the 28th does?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, we've got 3 dates. Think that's sufficient? We can
We
keep
should
track
have
of
all
it.
the information by then that we need for negotiations. So we did last year, so I think we're good.
Okay, awesome. And then we'll decide on that at the March 9th meeting. Appreciate you guys all being flexible with that. All right. Next item on the agenda, executive session will require a motion to enter executive session for the purpose of South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2, parentheses 1. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Cody Grant. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Carissa. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Christie
Motion
thinks
carries.
she's
In executive session, 8:58 PM.